I feel like that kind of set the pace for the many encounters these two would have over the next 2 years. And let's see what today has in store for us. In the bottom left side, we're looking at the main base of the man who's made it to the grand finals twice out of 2 seasons in this tournament. It is the one and only Trap.
Repping Jin Air Green Wings. Getting many trophies for them. But another man with so many trophies, you can literally always see them emerging from behind his head while he's playing. And no matter what, we're going to see an angry tussle of the hair. Win or lose, I can't wait to see it. Up here in the top right, in the blue, the Finnish phenom. It is NC Sports Serral. I think a player who harnesses rage probably better than any other player. When he gets really angry looking, as you said it with your prediction, right, Kev? You think he's angry enough to just crush it 2-0?
Yes, but I also kind of hope it for Serral, because the fact that he loses a ZVZ here and there against Raynor, you know, like we kind of got used to that, and that can happen because we know that Raynor is absolute world class as well, just like Serral is, of course. Then he started losing some ZVTs, and we're like, well, you know, those Terrans just become incredibly powerful as well, and in particular Clem is just really bringing it to the next level. But if we now also start losing ZVPs big, then what is life really all about at that point? Like, I don't think that I'm really ready for that yet.
Yeah, it's that would be an interesting turn of events. Now, as Trap going into this match, I mean, do you think he's expecting a certain style from Serral? Do you think he's expecting more of like a Lurker style or more of that Ravager Baneling? Do you think there's any sort of preparation that Trap has, or like specific plan where he can, you know, maybe make a gamble or toss a coin to get an advantage?
I'm not exactly sure what he's expecting out of Serral, and I'm not even sure if I know what to expect out of Serral. I think Lurkers is probably our best pick, but we'll just kind of see how this game plays out. I do want to mention, for full transparency, that obviously when a European player goes up against a Korean player, things become a bit complicated with servers. The first game we're playing on US Central. This is definitely a ping advantage for Serral, so you can kind of look at this as a must-win map for him. Then I do believe that the second map will be played on US West, and that is going to give a small advantage to Trap just to keep things fair.
Yeah, if there's one thing, it occasionally works, but what I don't really like to see is the Disruptor drop. I think that can be really cool. You know, the Blink Stalkers, add a Disruptor drop, keep trying to drop on the army. I just feel when you're doing it on the Central West server from Korea, it becomes very touch and go, and more often than not, those Disruptor shots are not nearly as effective.
Now, the Twilight Council is done. Trap also has a Stalker on the way. Let's take a look at his main base real quick. He has 2 on gas, so I'm assuming that he's supposed to start Resonating Glaives. Exactly. I was like, why are we not starting that yet? That could have been 10 seconds quicker than he actually started it, but maybe that won't really make a big deal, because in the end of the day, this will only really start going when that War Prism comes out as well. And this is obviously a scenario we've seen play out a million times, and it truly comes down to the execution. I wonder if Serral is going to get that Spine Crawler at the 3rd, which is kind of like a safe way to go up against this build, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, I think we've seen Spines become such a common occurrence against it. And Serral, because he's not committing to a scout, this is a very efficient opening, right? No OV speed, no Overlord Sacrifice, just has the Ring of Zerglings. And at this point, he says, hey, there's no Oracle that's come out on the map. It's probably Twilight Robo, drops the Roach Warren, and he is going to go for this kind of, get a handful of drones on the 3rd, get out 6 queens, and deal with the first wave or 2 with just Zerglings and queens, and then start trickling those roaches out off 1 gas. So not quite as much of a shutdown reaction as what some of the Korean players have favored recently. You know, the 3 Ravagers really quick combined with the Zerglings. But with this one, I mean, you've got lots of queens. That warp has got to be careful. If it goes too deep on creep, it can absolutely get shut down.
Yep, and we can already see 3 Spore Crawlers on the way as well for Serral, so he seems to be worried about a potential very quick Dark Shrine behind this, which obviously is somewhat popular, but we know that that's not happening at all, so those Spore Crawlers are not going to help out against these Adepts, and I am actually a little bit worried here for Serral. We'll see if Trap lets his Shade finish up or not. If I was Trap, I'd probably cancel it, and that's exactly what he does, because he was getting some good shots off on these Queens, but we need to get a few more Adepts right here, otherwise the Zergling count actually becomes a problem for these Adepts, even with Resonating Glaives.
And the first 8 roaches popping out now as we speak. The queens are going to go back and start doing some more injects. There are a few more adepts here still looking for it. Of course, probing happening behind us. Serral is down on the workers, as is standard for now. Adepts just going to pick off a single roach. They do cancel the shade here. Roaches and queens trying to pressure them backwards. I love those pickups with the warp prism, just keeping those low hit point adepts alive. None of them really going down just yet. Ooh, and look at that. The Zerglings can't really engage into that many adepts. You need more roaches down here. Serral, his third base, is in pressure right now.
Yep, that shade gets cancelled as well. One more queen gets picked off. It's starting to look a bit dangerous. On the other hand, now with all those additional roaches coming out, I actually think it's going to be okay. And Serral does still have a couple of Zerglings on the bottom side of the map, as we now can see that Trap is going to try to go up to 3 bases. I think this is always such a feel-good moment for the Zerg, when you see that one pro being sent out and you're able to pick it off with just a couple of Zerglings. So Serral has successfully weathered the storm. Now I'd say start that lair, Serral, because with slow roaches, you're obviously not going to win the game. And there we go, pick.
Indeed. Well, more adepts coming in on the 3rd base. There's a few roaches ready to deal with it, but a couple of adepts going to take out 3 drones, 4 drones. Prism does just run out of there, but that's a lot of worker kills. Ooh, a Serral there taking more losses than I think he really should be willing to lose. But, you know, his Zerglings on the other side deflected as well. And this is very important. Serral, of course, wants to drone up, get right up into the 50s, the 60s in workers well before Trap's 3rd base is finished. As it is, feels like Trap, I mean, he's already got 6 sentries and an Immortal gathering energy. He's got Blink on the way, a Forge. It feels like this has done everything Trap needed it to do.
Yep, I think the Trap is quite okay with how all of this went. I mean, 6 adepts did go down in the end, but 1 queen went down, 2 roaches went down, 7 drones. Don't forget that he also forced out 3 spore crawlers that obviously are not super useful, other than keeping the warp prism at bay, perhaps. So actually not bad. We know that he likes to follow this up with a very committed push, though, right? Like, you might get +1, you might get blink, but if you're not dropping any additional tech buildings, if you don't see storm or maybe a robo bay go down, then Trap is putting himself in a position where he kind of just needs to win the game a minute or 2 from now.
And these adepts going to commit on that 3rd. Roaches, though, do take them out, but not before a solid 4 worker kills. And one of the adepts does even get out. The push on the front at the same time, clearing up creep, and then pulls back. Just a bit of pressure here, making Serral feel unsafe. Serral's roach speed and +1 melee almost on the way, but he's forced to make quite a few ravages here, respread the creep. His 4th base does start up. Very important for Serral to get that 4th, as Trap here goes into double robo, takes both gases on the 3rd base. That's going to be Serral's trigger to want to drone up his own 4th. He's got his own Baneling speed on the way. I do like this Ravager Bane style. I think Serral's an absolute master of it. What worries me for him is just the
no!
4 immortals.
The Zealot wasn't on hold position. The Zealot moved forward to fight the Zerglings, and these are the kind of things that you just can't let Serral get away with. A couple of probes are going to fall, a little bit of lost mining time as well. On top of that, Serral's going to get an absolutely perfect scout if he wasn't going to get that yet. And look at the minimap. Trap is actually going to go for it with his army, but I don't like this that much, even though the force fields are very good. But on creep against Ravagers, against Banelings, Trap needs to be very careful here.
Yeah, good spread of those biles. So good to break down everything. And he's going to try and get on top. Lots more Zerglings coming out. And Immortals on their own, I don't know if they can hold this. A good kind of usage of the force fields by Trap to shave off some units. But he's got to extricate himself. He's got to get the heck out of there. You know, when all the Immortal barriers are gone, you're out of force fields. You've got nothing to deal with Zerglings. That's not a good position with that army.
Yep, Trap is sending 2 adepts into the 3rd, but they won't really get anything done. We've got 1 Colossus on the way, we've got 1 Disruptor on the way. Now obviously if Trap gets a couple of Disruptors out and Serral doesn't drop an Infestation Pit and he's not tacking up, then there is definitely a lot of potential still in this double robo, because 65 probes against 65 drones is actually a pretty good spot to be in. It's just, can he weather the storm if Serral actually wants to be aggressive here?
Yeah, and that's exactly what it looks like Serral wants to do. That is 13 Ravagers, Rotterdam. Already 15 Banelings on the map. I think we're going to see some more morph, and it looks like he's going to try and bust in. Now, Trap's got a few cannons and batteries spread around. He's got a decent unit count, but it's all about, hey, can that Disruptor count make a big account? Can those Immortals not get surrounded? The Disruptor's out in the open right now.
Yeah, I mean, 1 big Nova, and this becomes a very easy hold, but he actually fires the Nova, I think, a little bit too early. Now, Serral's coming in from multiple angles. The second Nova is very good. There are still a lot of Banelings here in the mix. Overcharge is being used, though, and that's a very good battery overcharge. That's actually going to push this Zerg army back for now. That second Nova really made a difference there, I think, for Trap.
Yeah, I think it was like 4 or 5 Ravages went down to that. A very nice kill. And only now up to 74 workers is Serral. Like that 4th base was a little under saturation for quite a while there. Just started his 5th base. Serral's comfort zone, I feel, in this matchup, and the way we've seen him crush this sort of Protoss style in the past, it's often involved him being at 90 workers at this point and then making like 100 banelings and then just like squishing them into the Protoss's face. You know, it's like holding down, like the bully holding down the kid's face into the grass, be like, eat dirt. You know, it's an obscene number of banelings that Serral excels with in this matchup.
Well, you gotta go with my childhood like that, Pig.
Why do you play Warcraft, you nerd, Kevin?
No, stop it, Pig. Stop it. All right. No, but I think you're spot on. I mean, Trap is still building 2 Colossus at a time right now. I would like to see him kind of start moving out, because I think at this point, Trap's army is actually better than Serral's army. Now, of course, stepping on creep becomes scary, right? Because Zerg doesn't need that much time to morph 25 additional banelings, and before you know it, you lose the entire game. The thing is, now the Vipers are on the way, and I feel like once Serral starts getting access to those Vipers, and they will start gathering a bunch of energy as well, then we're going to get the dance between High Templars and Vipers. And since we are playing this game on US Central, I feel like that's a very scary dance to go for.
Absolutely. Now, interestingly, he started 2 Vipers, cancelled one of them. Serral's decided he just wants the single Viper, probably to yoink the Colossi out of there, most importantly, maybe to disable some Disruptor shots. You mentioned there's not that many Banelings. He's already on the edge of creep. The Banelings haven't morphed yet. Serral, he's got to run back. Quickly morphs 30 extra Banelings. Some Queens do get caught out. A big Ling run by, though. Ooh, he's going to get in and start to do some damage on that base. Shield batteries and cannons, though, well set up to defend. Now it's charge and a DT shrine. So if Trap adds a big round of Archons or something to this army does become a lot meatier. Right now, it's still very force field reliant. There's 7 sentries in there. Remember, Corrosive Bile can deal with that, but it's not an immediate counter. Keep an eye on where the force fields land in this next fight.
Trap actually has no unit in his natural on the wall up, so if those Zerglings would have just tried to run in the natural, they would have probably succeeded in doing so. Trap's playing a very dangerous game because Adreno Glands is about to finish up as well. And if Zerglings with +2 melee and Adreno Glands start showing up in your main and natural, well, then you can close your eyes because you know you're going to lose 20 probes almost immediately.
Greatest Spire is now starting up. Lots of static defense going down. Serral's kind of realizing, okay, this is getting dicey. Like, my Greatest Spire is not ready yet. And this game is going to get forced into a later stage.
He's going into like 75 Banelings. He's already got 57 Banelings and he's morphing 19 more, so make it 76 at this point. A couple of Zerglings do get a cancel on the Nexus as well. I mean, this either goes incredibly well for Serral or he gets blown up by 1 or 2 Novas, right? It's kind of a hit or miss army. I don't know. It feels very weird. I mean, yeah, okay.
Oh, no! Oh my god, Trap just not watching his army for a moment there. Caught completely off guard on the edge of creep.
Yep, I mean, that's just a mistake you cannot make against a man with 77 Banelings. The Disruptors get blown up. A couple of Stalkers are going to flank the remains of this Zerg army, but there are 72 additional Zerglings on the way. I gotta say, a second Viper would have came in really handy here for Serral, so I'm not exactly sure why he thought he only needed one. But no matter what happens here at the tail end of this fight, this was already a big success for Serral. And he blinks forward. Trap just goes forward with a patience blink. Well, that didn't really work out either, as those Stalkers get picked up immediately. All the other Stalkers get surrounded as well. It's kind of like a disaster of a fight for Trap.
Yeah, I mean, those Adrenal +2 Zerglings do so much damage. Nice micro with the Prism. I mean, Trap surviving there. Really great micro, but he'd already lost most of his important units at that point. I mean, just that, getting caught in that corner up against the Destructible Rocks on the edge of creep, Serral pouncing on it. I mean, Serral was wanting an opportunity to fight so badly. I was getting to that point where I was like, dude, I don't know, Serral didn't have that much bank. It felt like Serral needed to have a good fight, and well, yeah, he got a good fight. He got a great fight. I think Trap there just needed to kind of keep improving his composition and really make sure he didn't get cornered like that. We were saying he's still reliant on force fields for a bit there. Now he's replacing it with a pure meat army, but he doesn't have the numbers. That is a ton of Ravager Bane.
Yep, he's gonna get surrounded here. The War Prism needs to do its best job in keeping these Colossi alive, and it doesn't really succeed in doing so. The Immortals are kind of left by themselves as well, and one Colossus is just not going to be enough here to keep this safe. The Banelings will connect with the probes as well. 27 workers have gone down, and I think that is going to do it for game one. And Vic, I just want to mention that Trap doesn't have thermal lens. That's kind of bizarre as well, considering the fact that he's made 4 Colossi, 5 Colossi in this game. That must have been a mistake. GG gets called. Serral takes game one. But I think we both feel there was more potential there for Trap in this game, right?
Yeah, it felt like Trap had navigated his way through all of the really scary moments where, I mean, there was that big attack that Serral went for, took out some units, but he wasn't on that big economy lead that Serral likes to be on. And even when he made 75 Banelings, this was 75 Banelings versus a maxed out Protoss player.
Yeah.
That is a scary thing. If those Archons are there, some force fields delay the Banelings, even by a few seconds, you get 2 more volleys with that army, like 30, 40 Banelings die without doing any damage.
Yep, and I think then the best thing you can hope for is an even fight. You're not going to win the fight anymore. Maybe you can still trade out a little bit. And not having thermal lens, I mean, I only noticed it later. I was like, these Colossi are attacking in a very odd way. Like, why are they only shooting at units nearby? Well, that's a pretty important upgrade to get, that +2, +3 range that the Colossi get there. And that's definitely a big mistake by Trap. I think above all, I think Trap is very used to having oracles and like dropping revelations on top of his Zerg army non-stop. That this time he was just kind of blindsided by that army of 75 Banes showing up. He was like, I'm on the edge of creep, like he's not gonna attack me off creep. So I was like, well, if you're just standing there and I've got 70 plus Banes, I may just go for it. I was like, oh my god. And I mean, I think at that point the entire fight just became a bit of a meme, right? Because Stalkers were kind of on the top side of the battle while the Colossi were still at the bottom. Then he blinked a couple of other Stalkers into the Zerglings and the Ravages. It just it is one of those fights where if you're not ready for it in the beginning of it, you're always trying to catch up and you're never truly ready to make something out of it.
Absolutely, Kevin. I mean, I think every Protoss has been like, hey, I'm ahead, I'm good in this PvZ. You know, whether it's even or ahead, it's one of the two. You're feeling good, you're feeling confident, and you're like, yeah, this is good. And then you just don't track their army, you get ambushed, your army's all clumped up, it's getting flanked. And those are the games where the next 10 games, you always have a hallucinated Phoenix, like patrolling in front of your army going, I will not be surprised again. So I doubt Trap will be making any mistakes with his map vision in the next games in this series.
I gotta say, it was really surprising to see Trap not have a Zealot in his wall off for the last 4 or 5 minutes of this game. Now, he didn't really get punished for it in this game. We had one little run by, and at that point he did actually have a Zealot. It just wasn't on hold position, so it was charging forward, and that is what opened the door for the Zerglings. But I mean, Serral clearly had no time to watch this replay, but this is something to keep in mind, I think, for the other Zerg players in this tournament, because that is just something you cannot get away with. If you play against Raynor, or if Serral is aware of it, those links will start running into your natural and main over and over again, and I think at that point you'll be in all sorts of trouble.
Indeed. Well, here we go. We're going to see if he does lock down the doors and stop those Ling run bys and that sort of stuff. In map number 2, definitely wants to avoid those ambushes. A sudden downfall in map 1. Can he bring it back? Representing Jin Air Green Wings, it is Trap.
And in the bottom right side, we're looking at the main base of the Finnish Phenom himself. He was able to win the season finals of the DreamHack SC2 Masters summer. Can he do it again in fall? Actually, it's winter. It is Serral.
And of course, I'm in Australia where it's summer, so it's even more confusing for me, Kevin. But
well, it's going to be hard to win fall since Raynor already won that one a little while ago. It's like, well, yeah.
Well, a good thing for Trap that he came with the early block. Does see the 12 pool. Now, this is a map with quite a bit of surface area on the natural wall off. Serral going for the very aggressive opening. Some Protoss players have disparagingly talked about this as if it's, oh no, 12 pool is just the solid macro opening with some light pressure for Zerg in Legacy of the Void, but I think that is a bit of an exaggeration, and scouting it so early, even keeping those Lings at home for a few seconds, that's pretty good, I think, for Trap. Serral has to leave one Zergling chasing the probe. He's going to send a few more, tries to intercept it, but good micro on that probe, and a second gate, second pylon core, 2 Zealots chrono boosted. A mega safe opening. Trap not taking any chances, very much respecting this.
No, Absolo, well, he has to be very careful. I mean, if that Zealot would have been surrounded immediately, things would get a bit ugly. But with the second Zealot almost out, I think Trap can start taking this fight. But, you know, you said it's a bit of an exaggeration, but the Zergs actually really feel like that. Multiple European Zergs, they're like, no, it's okay. If you can just force them to have a couple of probes on the low ground. Second probe already is going down. And as crazy as it is, I actually think this is already good enough for Serral. You're just hoping to force out some units. You're obviously delaying the Nexus by quite a bit when you go for this opening. And then having those probes on the low ground, A, they're not mining. And then B, being able to pick off 2 of them while keeping the majority of your Zerglings alive. I actually think this is a successful start for Serral.
Yeah, and he goes into the gas behind it. Of course, it's a very delayed gas. So the interesting point is always this little bit of counter pressure from the Protoss. I love the way Serral is going to try and slide a Ling in, and that probe going to be forced to wall off behind it. But a 2 Zealot, 2 Adept pressure, it's a bit of a conundrum for a Zerg who is unprepared. Serral, he knew this was coming though. He's got 2 Queens out front, another 2 on the way. He's building 13 Zerglings, which is more than enough to deal with those Adepts if they shade across. And he needs to go back to droning, almost too safe even for Serral. I mean, great respect. Obviously, he saw how delayed the Nexus was, so he can drone up and still get ahead in the workers here. He even spots the Stargate with that Zergling, which is really nice for him. And you've got a very delayed third off this opening as Serral, but he's definitely completely contained any counter pressure. So not a bad start.
He's got a lot of Zerglings. It seems like he's just waiting for Zergling speed. I mean, he truly respected that move out, like you mentioned. The Zealots are still this kind of here. Now, the Adepts have once again made their way to this side of the map. So I think what Trap is hoping for here is maybe start the fight in the natural, then shade the Adepts into the main base. And Serral needs to figure out how many Zerglings he wants to split into the main. Apparently, it's just all of them, as he believes that the Queens will be fine in fighting 2 Zealots and 2 Adepts. And he was right.
Well, there's going to be 2 more Adepts coming, so 4 Adepts. Oracle, of course, powering up. Trap is hitting that probe production hard with no third Nexus, third hatchery. Does feel like Serral's behind here, and I think, yeah, as the dust kind of settles, it does feel like he did overcommit to his early defense. So now if Trap finds any damage, he's going to be really happy. If he can even just pick up a couple drones, that's massive. Even just forcing more Zerglings would be pretty good for Trap right now, and I like the way he's kind of posturing around this map. Might even look for a cancel on the third base. 4 Adepts, 2 Zealots do a fair bit of damage.
Well, Zergling speed is about to finish up, so Serral really needs to get these Zerglings over here. And I love that Trap immediately is shading out, because now you got to decide, do you want to use those Zerglings and keeping that hatchery alive, or do you want to keep them in your natural? It seems like the answer is keep them in your natural. 4 drones going down, no, 5 even. This is pretty good. The only issue I see here for Trap, as 1 more drone falls, is can he now keep his Nexus safe? I almost feel like he needs to keep his Oracle defensively, and yeah, that's just what he's going to do. If he can keep this Nexus alive, he's indeed in a fantastic position.
Yeah, he's pushing his worker count ahead, maintaining a lead for or at least even for most of this early game, and Oracle just turns on its laser beam. Zerglings quickly disengage. With a second Oracle there, you've got more than enough energy as Trap leaves the Oracle turned on. Lings come back in and they're like, hey, you meant to turn that laser beam off, mate. You know that drains energy, right? And Trap just says, no, not going to be any opening at all. Serral, I think, playing into the middle stages of this game from just a little behind. Trap, of course, is a while away from things like Robos, Forges, Twilight just going down now. But 3 Oracles is a big resource, and it's very much on Serral. Once again, he cannot let much damage happen.
Yep, and that seems very difficult, because we know what Trap is capable of with a couple of Oracles. These Zerglings are going to try to dive on the Sentry and the Probe here. The Probe falls. I don't think the Sentry is going to fall. Obviously, Trap could always drop a Force Field as well if he feels like that is necessary. There's 1 Queen in the main and a Spore Crawler. Trap actually wants to get the Queen, really wants to get the Queen, and he does get it, but at the cost of a lot of damage on his Oracles. Wow, I'm actually totally okay with this, Serral. You lose 1 Queen, but 2 Oracles have lost pretty much all of their HP. Yeah, that's, I think, pretty damn good for the Zerg.
Yeah, even if they're in the orange hit points, they can survive quite a few more hits. Remember, Oracles only have 60 shields. So, I mean, it looks like the same size health bar. It's like, no. The shields is pretty small compared to the 100 hit points. So deep in the red, it's like, oh, okay, you can survive like 4 Spore Crawler hits. Like, oh no, like that's not very good. You need to be able to survive a bit more if you want to be doing those little dives all game to pick off units. Trap, I wouldn't say he's like massively behind after that, but definitely an opportunity to start picking off those drones. It's kind of gone. He's going to try to pick off a few of the creep Schumers, but Serral's on top of this.
Yep, Serral's got so many queens, and these queens are getting a lot of shots off on the final Oracle, the one Oracle that actually did still have int HP. So, I mean, at least Trap still has all 3 Oracles alive, and that's going to help out defensively for sure, as we have a couple of Adepts just casually shading into the natural. And they should be able to grab a couple of drones in the main here as well. Those shots sync up. Trap. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's damage, right? All of this is definitely adding up.
Yeah, I think Oracles might have been shut down, but I mean, forcing mining time loss on the natural and 6 drones just for 2 Adepts, that's pretty nice. Definitely feels like a losing war against the creep with the Oracles. A couple of mosquitoes kind of trying to pick at it, but the Queens just respread it as quickly as it goes down.
Okay.
And Blinkstalk is coming in the big way. Is that a second Robo? So it's going to be a very similar build, almost identical to the last game here for Trap.
Well, Serral just made 7 Overlords, and I feel like Serral only ever really makes 7 Overlords if he wants to build nothing but Queens. Nothing but Queens, Roaches, or basically just battle units. And I think it's going to be the March of the Queen, as we have 7 Queens. I think Serral will know that a Roach Ravager boss can never work, as long as there are still 3 Oracles alive, right? It doesn't really matter whether they have 10 HP or 70 HP. Defensively, they're going to be more than fine against the Ravagers, so you need to bring the Queens here as well. Serral has built a lot of units, but if you look at Trap's side of the map, Trap feels pretty strong defensively.
Yeah, I don't know. Stalkers and Sentries are very good defensively. I agree with that. And this is a bit of a crazy move forward from Serral. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, with the force fields there, this is a bit dangerous. And the Queens are not over on this side of the map. He's droning, he's adding an infestation pit. The 4th base did get cancelled there by a Trap, but I think seeing the army retreat, and Serral committing to such a massive units and not really able to do anything with it. He's got a ton of Zerglings out.
Yeah.
Trap here looking real comfy.
We do have a Baneling nest as well. We have Baneling speed, so obviously these Zerglings could eventually morph into Banelings, and then we could maybe see a similar scenario to what we saw in game 1, but this game is definitely a bit odd. I mean, most games that open up with a 12 hold, they're always a bit different, right? They're a bit off pace, a bit off beat. It just kind of feels like it's been all over the place. It's really funny how the worker advantage has swung as well. One point it's like, oh, Trap is ahead. And then they're like, no, Serral's 9 workers ahead. And then you blink twice and all of a sudden Trap was 8 workers ahead. At this point, Serral has once again secured the worker lead. But his army is not that fantastic. He's got 15 Ravagers. That is good in keeping a Protoss army at bay, but if it really comes push to shove, I don't think his army is that fantastic at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that, Kevin. Zerglings do come in for a nice little run by on the 4th base. Pick up a few Zealots, a shield battery in production, force the army back. Good way of making use of that Zergling count as the Spire finishes up the Hive. Almost done here for Serral. Still no Banelings on the ground, and interestingly, a second evolution chamber going Carapace upgrades. So normally we see a bit more of a focus on just double attack, but wanting to get some of those armor upgrades mixed in does help the Roaches and Ravagers, of course, against the Stalkers and Colossus.
Kind of cool as the Oracles were still like, hey, we're actually still alive as well. I mean, we took a bit of a beating in the early game from the Queens and the Spore Crawler, but we can still cancel a hatchery that's not being protected. So well done there by Trap, making sure that Serral does not go up to 5 bases easily. And I saw +1 flyer attacks and I was like, that's kind of interesting, but I don't think this is really the moment to make Mutas. Well, apparently Serral thinks it is the moment to make Mutas as he queues up 8 Mutas right when this Protoss army is knocking on his front door. Blink is already done, +2 is done for the Stalkers. I feel like Serral's in a pretty problematic spot, but then again, with a couple of cross and piles, anything is possible.
That's a Zergling annihilating army, though. He's got to be so careful. So many force fields. I mean, almost all of the Zerglings have been taken out already. Banelings do get forward and take out some big hits. There's still 2 Colossi in the back and a ton of Blink Stalkers, though. And if you get to just Stalkers versus Ravagers in even numbers, that is not good for the Ravagers.
Yep, I wonder where those Mutas are. I'd actually like to see the Mutas help out here a little bit because all the Ravagers are dying. Now the Mutas show up. The Queens are going to help out a little bit on the top as well. But look at Trap. He's just forward blinking in those Ravagers. And Trap ties up the series. after just having a pretty clean game overall. Maybe the Oracle control wasn't as good as we normally see out of him, but he did keep him alive big. And as long as you have those Oracles alive, they obviously still fulfill and serve some of their purposes.
An interesting game there. The way that Serral tried to do and set up for that attack, potentially busting. We're talking about March of the Queens, the big Ravager Ling army. I'm curious, do you think after the Oracle opening, he was maybe expecting more of like a build up into Storm Immortals? Because I feel like against a Blink Stalker Sentry follow-up, I would never want to be doing a bust. Even on a map like Lightshade, walking Queens and Ravagers across the map seems like it's destined to fail.
Yeah, maybe he didn't want to do that. I mean, he had 7 Queens, and since he made 7 Overlords at once, I was like, all right, this is it. He's holding down the Roach button and he's going for it, but no. Then he just kind of went back into droning. Well, maybe we'll figure out eventually. For now, we'll head into a very quick break, and after that, we'll be back with Game 3 between Trap and Serral.
Hope you've all grabbed yourself a snack, some refreshments, because the series is about to continue. It's tied up 1 map apiece between Serral and Trap. Some fight back there for the Protoss player, blocking the 12 pool. Lots of nice counter pressure throughout that game, and a devastating push. Zerglings don't look too good against Colossi and Force Fields, do they, Roddy?
No, and on all those Blink Stalkers with +2 already being there, it's like, well, 8 mutas just popped, and yeah, they can't really make the difference here. I think what was very interesting about that previous game is that I think the initial start was actually kind of good for Serral, but I think Trap, by moving out with the 2 Zealots and the 2 Adepts, and even later 4 Adepts, I think he forced out so many additional Zerglings that it really evened things out. If not, it even gave Trap a little bit of a lead. I complimented Serral on picking up the 2 probes and then keeping his links alive, but he still felt he needed way more links, and I think that really hurt his economy by building that many Zerglings early on.
Indeed. Well, this is a man you don't want to underestimate, and you could see that the Zerg player wanted to stop him getting out of control, because when his oracles and adepts are dancing around your mineral lines, it is a murderous time for Zerg. Let's see if he can finish this series off. Sporting the top left-hand side of Submarine in the red, it is Jinair Greenwing's Trap.
Sending one of his very first probes to the other side of the map to see if there is another 12 pool, or at least block that hatchery from going up. In the bottom right side, we're looking at the main base of the man who hasn't lost a series against Protoss since March. It is Serral.
$16 pool from Serral. I really like this opening on this map. I actually think this is one of the best ways to play a macro game, because even off this, your Zerglings get across so early. If you commit to even just 2 or 4 or 6 slings, it's a little hard for the Protoss to stop. And ooh, still gets his natural down. Very nice. That probe, of course, a bit nervous about checking for the 12 pool. And Serral nicely just didn't build an extra drone, saved the lava specifically so he could get the hatchery down. Otherwise, normally you wouldn't build that hatchery until a bit closer to a minute 20. Serral gave himself that opportunity, and now 6 slings going to be coming across the map. Trap has to go core before Nexus. I wonder, is it Nexus? Does he actually opt for a wall off as well with a quick second gateway? We'll see exactly how Trap handles this opening.
Yeah, this is so scary, right? Because playing on Submarine, you just don't really know. The moment that that probe leaves the main base of the Zerg player, like, all right, is he building more Zerglings? How much gas is being mined? You can see that Serral immediately splits off one of his Zerglings to just keep track of that probe. Now the other links are going to make their way to the other side of the map. I guess Trap will build his tech building as part of the wall. Now, let's see if... I actually would say that you should almost play always Stargate here. I feel like not playing Stargate would be a bit crazy, but he could also just go second gate here. Well, the links are going to stream in, and this is already going to be a little bit awkward. Serral immediately wants to take the fight against the Zealot, grabs the first probe. Now actually just wants to get economic damage done. That's 3 probes going down, 4 probes going down. What a start for Serral.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Remember, his link speed isn't even delayed at all this game. Like, he's got a natural on location. Getting 4 probes, as well as forcing out the early Zealot, delaying the Nexus just a little bit. A good start here for Serral. And I was saying, you know, do you go the second gateway? Because if you don't, you often lose a bunch of probes like that. But if you go for the second gateway, it's just a bit awkward opening 2 gateways so fast, delaying your tech. Now, Trap actually goes for a robo there. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yes. It almost gives me the idea that he's very worried about getting Road to Link busted here. Obviously, Submarine is a very small map, and since this was pool before hatchery as well, they get the quick queen out. And I think it is a somewhat popular follow-up. And obviously, having a Robo or a Stargate is very strong defensively. I kind of like that Serral's bringing his queen out this far forward. It's almost like, I've got something to hide, please don't scout it. And the Adept, you really want to know what's up. So he lets the Shade finish up, gets 1 drone, maybe we can get a 2nd drone. Nope.
Well, changes targets quickly. Yeah, nicely done. I like that. He knew Serral was going to block it, so he just changed targets before the Spore Crawler trick even went down, and then got the 2nd hit off it because of that. I mean, I think that's okay. You see plenty of drones. You kind of go, oh, okay, maybe I'll just do something like a little 2 Adept drop or something like that as Trap. Trap's only got 1 gateway right now, so gets the Prism out nice and early. I guess warp into the Adept now, loaded into the Prism, and then warp in another one on the other side of the map gives you a bit of pressure. He's actually already going for another Sentry.
This was kind of cool. Yeah, I almost feel like this is going to be a 5-gate attack with just a War Prism. Well, right when I say that, he drops the Twilight Council, so that's not going to be it either. Serral started Burrow there for a quick second. I was like, what? That'd be very weird, but he cancels that immediately, as that seemed to have been a misclick. Yeah, I think that Trap is just hoping to be a little bit annoying right now, right, with a couple of Gateway units and a War Prism on the other side of the map, but This map is so small that I feel like it must be so tempting to follow this up with a 5-6 gateway attack and maybe charge as well. Maybe one Immortal and then charge.
Bravest sentry in the world goes out of the wall, fights a single speedling, kills it, and then goes back to the wall. Okay, Trap, you crazy person. You've talked about him leaving his wall open a few times in this series, and definitely a man who likes playing with fire. 2 sentries in his Esl. Yeah, this is the force field the mineral line harassment potentially, but not the most efficient way to use your minerals, just blocking drones from mining for a few seconds. So Trap gets pushed out, but you know what? It demands a response. This makes Serral build a few Zerglings, a bunch of roaches. And because of that, we've got a slight worker lead for Trap, who now adds charge, the forge, the DT shrine. So I actually really like what Trap's done with this opening. I think, though, Serral's creep spread, you can see, is going to be massively out of control in the next few minutes of this game.
Yeah, I do think that is indeed going to happen, but I kind of like the Dark Shrine, right? Because let's not forget about Pillars of Gold. Serral made 3 Spore Crawlers. He didn't really need them, and that's something that Zerg players, I think, are always annoyed about. In the previous game, we didn't really see a lot of DTs, and on top of that, Serral, as a sentry does get picked off. Let's not forget that Serral hasn't really gotten Overlord speed in this best of 3 at all, so he kind of relies on the Overseer Scout. That hits a little bit later. These Dark Templars could potentially deal a lot of damage, as right now Serral has 1 Spore Crawler, but obviously 1 Spore Crawler is not enough to keep 3 mineral lines safe.
Well, Zergling's going to come in, but with the force fields available, you can't really cancel that 3rd Nexus. Trap would always just let you get close and then force field it at the last second and push the Zerglings off it. Not going to be able to get that either. That's bait, Serral, yeah. The single Immortal in the open always looks tempting, but unless you have an overwhelming number, it's not going to be good. Ooh, the Prism. Yeah,
this is really good.
The creep spread is so far out. He's like, what? You're not meant to have creep there? Oh my gosh. And it's giving good map control. The Adepts on the south get caught as well. Oh, Serral is starting to get control of this game, and he's really just taking all leverage away from Trap.
Yeah, the Overseer Scout was just in time in the end, and because the Queens were able to push the Prism away, well, the Dark Templars were never warped in, and that obviously also allowed Serral to get another Overseer that's just kind of sitting right now in his natural, and that's obviously keeping the main base safe as well. So I was a bit worried for Serral that maybe he would spot the Dark Shrine too late and he wouldn't be totally ready. In the end, I was wrong. Serral was super ready, and I'm with you, Pig. If you look at the minimap, this is definitely starting to get a little bit out of control. Serral kills the pylon as well, and somehow there is still a hole in these force fields. So a couple of the Zerglings survive. This is going to be a very difficult game for Trap to play.
He's going to be fighting from behind and doing it with a different composition. It's going to be a Charge Immortal style, rather than the Blinkstalker Colossus that he tends to favor. And we've got double evolution chamber for Serral already. So in those earlier games, I mean, we didn't ever really get to see, I think, Serral with any early leads or anything like that. It felt like Trap was always kind of neck and neck and sometimes even ahead. This time, Serral's got that supply lead. Yeah, it's mostly Roaches and Ravagers, but he's got the small worker lead. His 4th base is a bit more timely. Now, interestingly, Serral is still committing to a lot more workers before droning his 4th base than we're used to seeing from him. And he's actually going Burrow, Tunneling Claws, and Overlord speed. Interesting. Serral really wanting to get some of those kind of oddball utility upgrades. He's droning his 4th base now, though, so he's going to have a bit more economy for the late game.
I've always enjoyed watching Serral play with Roaches and Tunneling Claws, because I think his multitasking in those scenarios where you could maybe drop a couple of Roaches in the main and then sneak a couple of Roaches with Burrow just in the natural. And then all of a sudden there's a fight happening, but then there are Roaches in multiple mineral lines as well. Serral is obviously great in scenarios like that. I do think that Trap, if he just gets a hold of this, he knows it's coming, then he should obviously be capable of dealing with this. But if the first time you see it, they pop up, then it becomes very difficult. It's actually kind of funny that we already have cannons in the mineral line. There's a cannon in the mineral line in the natural, and there is a cannon in the main base as well.
Yeah, you were talking about him leaving his door open. I think that's kind of part of why Trap does this. A mixture of Baneling drops, but also Ling Run buys. It feels like at a certain point, Trap always drops a cannon in every mineral line, and he often has a battery in the natural and the 3rd as well. So just giving him a little bit of extra insurance, which I think means Tunneling Claws really has no way of finding anything just now. And single DT runs in, gets just a couple of worker kills. Not bad, but nothing amazing or game-ending. Interestingly, though, Serral has not got the big 85-90 workers or anything like that, and his hive is not that quick. So he's got to do something with the Ravager Bane. That being said, when you're up this much army supply, it's looking pretty good for you because Trap, he's got to move out to the 4th base, and this is where new angles open up.
And in the last 20 seconds, Trap was, I think, busy running around with his Dark Templar. He left an observer that was just kind of chilling there on creep, and Serral picked it up with Corrosive Bow. And it's actually so important to have observers out on the map, as these storms are big though, but at the same time, the roaches are going to try to make their way into the natural. Does he see that? It almost felt that he
does now. Yep. A little bit too late though, I think. Not with a lot of time to prepare, and has to split back into his natural. Banelings on the 3rd mineral line. Those probes desperately try to get out of there, and oh my lord, 22 probes go down. The cannon gets sniped on the natural. An awesome move by Serral. Right now, there is only one observer out, and it's out front the natural. There is a cannon in the main base. These roaches just picking off what they can. Trap gonna go for a bit of a desperate counterattack here, but I mean, Serral, he's got tons more Banelings. You cannot stay out on the map, Trap. I think you've got to go home, and he really needs to build another observer or two.
Yeah, he did rebuild one of them, but I think that observer that he lost before, it would have been so useful in just keeping track of where those units are coming from, and then maybe he would have been able to pick up on those tunneling claw roaches as well a little bit earlier than he actually did. Obviously, the amount of economic damage that Serral dealt is already good enough, but it seems like Serral wants more even before Adrenal Glands is done. Banelings looking to connect with High Templars. They don't really do that, but they do connect with a couple of the sentries, and at the same time we've got roaches attacking the 4th base as well. I don't think that this is holdable for Trap.
No, he's just getting overwhelmed here. Pulls back all the roaches and ravagers, does Serral. Split circlings down to the south side to take out that 4th. He's still picking off the army units.
Oh, no.
Getting High Templar kills even with Corrosive Bile. More roaches tunneling into these bases. Trap here is trying to do some heavy lifting with just a handful of units.
Yep, Serral is playing some excellent Zerg over here, just kind of trying to hit Trap from each and every single angle, going for non-stop run-bys, being super annoying with these roaches that are burrowing, unburrowing over and over again, getting as many kills as possible. And then while all of that is happening, he's getting a couple of the free pickoffs early in the Observer, and now we just saw him pick off 2 High Templars with the Corrosive Bow as well. It's pretty much just Immortals. Do we have 1 or 2 storms available? It seems like the answer is yes. And that's still going to keep Serral's army at bay. I mean, Trap is doing a very good job in keeping his Immortals alive, but he's so far behind economically big. It feels like this is something you can't possibly keep up.
Yeah, he doesn't even have the wall. Man, the Zealots and DTs warp in. He's trying to land some nice Scythe Storms. He does get a few of them down, but there's just too many Banelings and Ravagers. Serral here has built an advantage for himself, and I think in a fashion that we're a bit more used to seeing from Serral all over the Protoss, just mauling him. He's burrowed a Zergling on the 4th base in the middle of this. He's droned his 5th base up. He's taken a 6th in the bottom of the map. He's got his Adrenal finished. His +3 melee is starting up. Serral's not tunnel visioning on this. He's doing everything at once. He's had that map control with the creep spread. And Trap here, bare handful of units. I think Trap often looks like a god in these situations. He does so much with so few units, but it's kind of like it's this impossible, task. It doesn't matter if you're Hercules, man. You can't lift this.
Another run by, and I think that this is pretty much going to do it. I think Trap knows it as well. The main army is coming in on the right side. A lot of Banelings crashing into these Immortals, and that is going to be it. GG gets called. Serral will be the one to advance.